Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Cama, Saskatchewan Marketing Minutes, the Equipment Edition. My name is Riley Cozart. I sit on the board of Cama, Saskatchewan, and we are very excited to bring you two uniquely successful Saskatchewan equipment manufacturers today. Each company has prepared roughly 15 minutes worth of presentation material focusing on a marketing-related topic of their choosing. If you have any follow-up questions for either of our two presenters today, feel free to send those directly to me. We're going to ensure that my email address is provided. And I'll handle both passing the questions along to our presenters and reaching out to you directly with the responses. First up, we have Seedmaster Manufacturing. Seedmaster was founded in 2002 by Norbert Bojo. The company develops and manufactures leading-edge no-till seeding and planter technology. Based in Saskatchewan, Seedmaster is committed to building the most precise seeding technology in the industry and strives to help farmers optimize the genetic potential of each and every seed. And today, Afton Shabbat, Marketing Manager at Seedmaster Manufacturing, will speak to how short-line manufacturers can use customer experience to strengthen their channel strategy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Afton Shabbat. I'm the Marketing Manager at Seedmaster Manufacturing. Today, I'm going to go over how you can strengthen your channel strategy through customer experience. I'll be coming at this topic from the perspective of a short-line equipment manufacturer, or as we like to call it at Seedmaster, a strategic equipment partner. And I'll also be pulling from some of my past experience as a marketer for an equipment dealership. Today, I plan to focus on two key strategies. Number one, using pull marketing to increase the customer experience of your channel partners. And number two, the value of utilizing marketing-led customer experience, or MLCX, for your channel touchpoints. With that, let's start with what we know. Yes, this is all obvious, but I'm setting the stage, so bear with me. We have the manufacturer, the dealership, and the end user or producer. And yes, that is a dealership. It looks a bit like a lemonade stand, but it is the best I could find. So in a typical process, the manufacturer makes the product, the dealership sells the product, and the end user buys and uses the product. Now that we have that in order, let's talk about what strategic equipment partners are up against. For better or for worse, as strategic equipment partners, we are often competing with the mainline manufacturers for the attention of the dealership and the dealership sales teams. And yeah, I've referred to it as a problem, but in reality, it's just the way it is. This isn't something that can be fixed or changed, but it is something that we have to acknowledge as a big part of our reality. Why is it an obstacle? It starts with the manufacturer incentivizing the dealership. From there, the dealership incentivizes the dealership sales team. The sales team has more incentives to sell the product. The end user buys the product, and the manufacturer continues to increase revenue, enabling them to offer more aggressive incentives. This creates a cycle that becomes increasingly difficult to jump in on. So this leaves us with three options. Number one, forget the channel altogether and sell directly to the customer. Well, we know that this isn't going to work because manufacturers typically don't have the infrastructure to support the sale, and it's also not convenient for the customer experience. They prefer to have one place to go for their equipment needs. They don't want to be going to multiple touch points. The second option is to increase the frequency of our visits to our dealerships, increase our touch points with the dealerships, and provide them with more and more and more content. But this isn't going to work either, and it has the potential of becoming an annoyance to the dealerships. So let's talk about what the solution is. The third option is that we drive demand up from the customer to the dealership by utilizing a pull marketing strategy and increasing our interaction with the end user. This doesn't mean that we forget about our dealerships altogether. It is essential that we remember that our dealerships are the most valuable contributing factor to achieving growth and market share. We continue to maintain and grow those dealership relationships while simultaneously working to increase our presence with the end user. So how do we do this? As with any strategy, you need buy-in from leadership. If you aren't internally on the same page and working towards the same goal, you will either fail to accomplish what you've set out to do, or it won't have the maximum impact that it could. In the same way, you need buy-in from your dealerships. They need to know what you are up to. If you're reaching out to one of their customers, the best case scenario is that you work with them, or at the least, make sure they're informed and supportive of what you're doing. Finally, you create your pull marketing strategy. This strategy should reach beyond advertising on social, digital channels, print, radio. This strategy needs to touch the producer directly to give them the opportunity to experience your product, experience your services, and experience your brand. Only then will the producers begin to develop a relationship with your brand that will be powerful enough to drive demand back up through your distribution channels. I know that all of you have a lot of tactics in your toolbox, but here are a few ideas you can think about when creating your pull marketing strategy. Market research. This one could be done in a number of ways, including focus groups, product testing, surveys, etc. It utilizes the end user in a way that allows them to develop a relationship with you, and they feel as though they've contributed to helping you develop and improve your products. Then there's influencer programs. Influencer programs are based on trust and respect. If you're reaching out to the right people, you will be able to grow your relationship with this person and help to further position them as an informed voice among their peers. Then there are events. Most events have been online the last while, but even though they've been limited, there are still a lot of ways you can give your audience the opportunity to interact with your brand. Ways of doing this would be to host an online Q&A, open forums, roundtable discussions, and when we can start attending trade shows in person again, there's VIP nights and product launches, or you can host your own product knowledge event or facility tour, things like that. And lastly, gifting strategies would be another thing you can try to do. When you do get the opportunity to engage with the producer in a big way, make sure they know you appreciate it. Whether they've taken the time for a survey, purchased one of your products, or work with you for months to help test your product, always send a token of appreciation. A gifting strategy will add more touch points to the end user experience, and it will make them feel valued. These tactics will help create an affinity for your brand and will provide an excellent customer experience that will help drive that demand. As for the dealership, ultimately, they are the customer, and the whole purpose of the pull marketing strategy is to do a better job of giving that dealership an enhanced customer experience. Our job is to ensure that they have an excellent experience with the brand, and if they have producers coming to them, knowledgeable about the products they want to buy and ready to purchase, your dealerships will feel as though you've made their job easier, and that we truly are a strategic partner who's there to make both the dealership and each dealership salesperson more successful. And this is exactly how we deliver the best customer experience to our distribution channels, by maintaining a strong relationship with those channels and implementing a pull marketing strategy. You're going to create a cycle that will result in growth, it will result in increased revenue, and it will result in ongoing success with those distribution channels. So now that we've talked about driving demand through to the end user, let's talk about the relationship between the manufacturer and the dealership. As I mentioned earlier, bombarding your distribution channels to get them to pay attention is not the answer to increasing engagement. We need to be strategic. We need to be customized and personalized in the customer experiences we provide. In the past, B2B relationships were managed very differently than B2C. An email, a phone call, or a sales visit was standard, with the addition of tickets to a football game or hockey game here and there. But for B2C, budgets were larger, technology and data were being leveraged, and the majority of marketing department time was spent in that B2C space. But now more than ever, we're seeing this shift. The Salesforce State of Marketing report that you're seeing in front of you shows that companies are investing in their B2B marketing strategy very similarly to their B2C strategies, with the exception of ABM, or account-based marketing, in the B2B space. We are at the point where an email, a phone call, or a sales visit isn't enough to build brand loyalty with our partners. We need to utilize the same tools and tactics that we would if we were trying to create awareness, engagement, and loyalty in the general marketplace. This means we need to utilize our data to get to the heart of what our distribution channels or dealerships are looking for in order to create an impactful customer experience. So I know how much we all love acronyms. It seems that we're learning a new one every day, but I'm going to throw another one at you. MLCX, Marketing-Led Customer Experience. So forever and a day, marketing and sales have been tied at the hip. It's a principle that us marketers could repeat in our sleep, I'm sure. The two have to be aligned to achieve their goals. But when we look at all the tools that inform the customer experience, there are a lot more business units that can be impacted by data being collected by marketing, not just sales. Now, I'm not claiming that marketing is a one-department show, as many of these data sources are created in an environment of collaboration. But in general, the website is managed by the marketing department. Advertising is managed by the marketing department. Trade shows, again, it's a collaborative effort, but the majority of the responsibility falls on the marketing department. Same goes for formal email communications, social media channels, market research. Much of this is managed by the marketing department. And then in addition to that, there are a variety of other sources that aren't managed by the marketing department, but that marketing has access to, like sales history, service tickets, warranty claims, parts orders, etc. So when we add this all up, if you've segmented your B2B customers properly and are collecting accurate data from these sources, marketing should have the most well-rounded view of the customer. And here's where marketing-led customer experience comes in. Again, this doesn't mean that marketing gets to call the shots, but adopting the MLCX strategy will allow each department to access marketing data and marketing expertise to create a consistent customer journey for our B2B partners. If you're looking to create loyal business partners, you need to have a strong brand that delivers on your brand promise time and time and time and time again, and across all departments within each distribution branch. If you aren't delivering on that promise, your brand will weaken, trust will diminish, and your customers will be more likely to consider looking at other partnership options. Using the marketing department to lead this initiative will ensure that each department will have the same experience and that customer experience is being managed as one complete strategy rather than siloed within each division of your company. So if your distribution channel has a service department, a parts department, a warranty department, e-commerce, sales, the MLCX will ensure that each of those departments are receiving a consistent communication style, consistent delivery on the brand promise, and consistent customer experience, which is exactly what you want to drive the loyalty and engagement. So back to that state of marketing report we were looking at earlier. 69% of marketers say that traditional marketing roles limit customer engagement. And many industries, including agriculture, still consider marketing as a department that is responsible for brand, creative content, and advertising. Where marketers, on the other hand, consider both customer experience and communications as a big part of their core strengths, in addition to brand, creative content, and advertising. So creating this shift may come with challenges, but in the end, I'm sure your organization and your business partners will thank you. So here's how to get started. It starts with collecting the data. Whether you have a robust marketing automation platform that integrates all data from all of your marketing platforms automatically, or separate platforms like social media and email that aren't aggregated, you're going to need to start with what you have. As a side note, if you're trying to invest in better marketing software, the more you can show the value of that data, the easier it will be to get buy-in on investing in more integrated marketing software. So from there, collect enough data to allow yourself to identify trends, identify gaps in your data, or even data that inspires you to ask more questions. From there, create goals around your data insights. These goals should be SMART goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic or relevant, and time-bound. Once you've compiled what you do have, present it to your leadership teams along with your suggested next steps. As I said earlier, it's key that you are all on the same page. Assuming that you have the green light to act on your insights, from there, you need to prove your work. If you deliver on your SMART goals, the value of what you have accomplished should be pretty apparent. After you're done, compile those results, and again, identify next steps. Continue to repeat this process, and little by little, more of your customer experience insights will be integrated to the overall CX strategy. So now that you've integrated your pull marketing strategy, you've hopefully done two things. One, you've increased demand from the end user to the dealership, and two, you've given your dealership a better customer experience by making it easier to sell your product. You've also integrated your marketing-led customer experience, which has done the same thing. It has provided a better customer experience for your dealership. Both of these strategies working together will help you to increase product demand from your distribution channels, resulting in a stronger brand loyalty and increased sales revenue. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to join me today, and also give a big thank you to Cama for inviting me to participate in this event. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me by email at afton@seedmaster.ca, or you can find me on LinkedIn at afton-shabbat. I wish all of you the best in your channel marketing strategies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Afton. An insightful presentation and a unique approach to increasing sales and dealership engagement. There's no doubt about that. Next up, we have Spencer Groth, Marketing Manager with Honeybee Manufacturing. Based in Frontier, Saskatchewan, Honeybee has designed, manufactured, and marketed harvesting equipment to dozens of countries worldwide for more than 30 years. Today, Spencer will discuss the process of combining an owner's intuition with market research to release a marketable product in a short period of time.
Hi, everybody. My name is Spencer Groth, and I run marketing at Honeybee. This presentation is going to be a case study of how we commercialized a product back in 2016. What I personally hope is that this presentation gives you some takeaways for your careers, or at least acts as a conversation starter for you and your own companies. So without further ado, here is how Honeybee turned a hunch into a product in 1 year. The presentation can be split into 3 segments. The first being how we recognized a problem, then what we needed to learn because of that problem, thirdly, what we implemented based on what we learned. Firstly, before we get too far into things, it's fairly important to identify what exactly an Airflex is. The Airflex is our Honeybee's combine draper header with a flexible cutter bar. I could personally talk about it all day, but this isn't a trade show, so for the purposes of this presentation, it's really a flexible draper header with a few novel features that give it a real edge in the marketplace. The first feature would be a pneumatic flex system, which means that the cutter bar in the picture you can see in the presentation is based on struts that run along the width of the header, and the rigidity or flexibility of those struts is based on airbags. The second really cool feature about the machine is that it features an all-mechanical drive as opposed to a traditionally more hydraulic drive on most machines. And thirdly, the Airflex can switch from flex mode to rigid mode at the push of a button within the cab of the combine. Most of you probably know this, but the presentation isn't going to make sense if you aren't aware that a rigid header is used for cutting crops like wheat or sometimes canola or mustard, while a flex header really needs to cut on the ground. And that's used to cut crops like soybeans or lentils whose pods sit low to the ground, or even lodged crops, things like that. The flex is important because the ground isn't always flat. So it's critical that that cutter bar that you can see in your picture conforms to the shape of the ground so that farmers aren't seeing yield loss. The problem was recognized through an informal conversation with one of our owners. He had felt at the time that our current offerings that we were selling into the Midwest US market didn't really hit the mark for those farmers, and that we needed a streamlined machine without the features and components that are largely only used on mixed grain farms. Those superfluous features were things like rigid mode or gauge wheels and the header height system that's used to sense header height based on the gauge wheels. They go largely unused in the Midwest as opposed to Western Canada and the Northern US. Those mixed grain farms, that's where those features really come into play. So these features, they address Western Canada, they address the Northern US, but once we got into those Midwest I states, Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, Nebraska, extending over to even to Ohio and Michigan, those features didn't really add any value. They were just an added cost to the machine. So to put it very loosely, For the purposes of this case study, we could split our North American market into those two groups, the mixed grain farms and sort of the corn soybean farms. The total market potential within each of those groups is in the hundreds of millions, so it makes sense for us to consider adapting a product to fit each of those markets really, really well. So we created a plan. I felt strongly that we needed to create a real plan around this instead of just creating a product and throwing it over the fence and hoping people like it. So I floated the idea to the rest of the management team. And after a couple of meetings, we agreed to do a product adaptation for the first thing, but also that we needed to do the market research going in front of that adaptation to determine things like the consumer sentiment behind the ideas we're talking about. Now, there's a very real sense, particularly among today's farmers, that the purchase of a header is a business decision. The forward-looking, business-oriented farmers today are looking at things like return on investment when considering a capital expenditure on something like a header, whereas some of the smaller farmers in different segments of the markets are looking primarily at upfront cost. So we knew that, we knew in sort of our intuition told us that this would be something that was valuable, but we wanted to really test whether the reduced components on a more streamlined machine would make a significant difference in farmers putting honeybee in their consideration set. We also knew that reduced components would be cheaper to build and could potentially translate into a significant reduction in retail price without sacrificing any gross margin. So keep that in the back of your pocket. What we ended up doing was 2 focus groups, one in Davenport, Iowa, and the other in Urbana-Champaign, Illinois. We chose Davenport firstly because it's, at least in my opinion, demographically representative of the US soybean belt. It allowed us to bring more conservative farmers from Iowa over who have very specific growing conditions and put them together with other, maybe a little more progressive farmers in Illinois with their own unique growing conditions and put them around the table. Then Urbana-Champaign was chosen because of the large farms that are known around the region, and large farms, kind of that top echelon of farm, is a really important group for us. So we found a market research agency to recruit farmers of between 1,000 and 2,000 acres to Davenport, and farmers of between 2,000 and 8,000 acres to Urbana-Champaign. To recognize an obvious caveat here, focus groups don't drive statistically significant repeatable results. What they do is draw out ideas, open you up to ideas that you might not have considered before, and allow you to test some really nuanced, jam-packed ideas that can't necessarily be drawn out through other methods. Now, this was before the age of COVID-19, when traveling was easy. Because I'd had previous experience running focus groups in the past, we decided that I would make 2 trips to the US and run these focus groups instead of using a third-party moderator. The really important piece there is that we really wanted someone who knew the product and knew the company inside and out to be guiding these groups. So we decided someone internally would need to do this. Our first research question was whether the Airflex would be seen as a fit to these markets. And while the Airflex was seen favorably, as we suspected, and as our owners sort of felt in their hearts, these features on the Airflex were seen as a little bit superfluous for the corn and soybean guys. Our second research question was whether a tailored version would be seen as valuable, and if so, what would be valuable about it? And that's a jam-packed question, but to put it really simply, large acre farmers cited interest in the simplicity of a tailored version. They felt that the innovative features of the header addressed issues that exist on their current headers. But the small to mid-sized farmers cited that our price tag was a bit out of reach for them and that the tailored version would need to be significantly less expensive. the big issue here is that increased simplicity alone, even among the big farmers, wasn't enough to turn the table. There was a certain group of farmers that maybe a little more forward-looking that knew that just the newness of the machine, and that they knew that it was so much different than everything else on the market that they would jump on something. But for the most part, even the biggest part of the group of those larger farmers intrinsically understood that a streamlined header without all those bells and whistles shouldn't command as high of a price. And so they felt a price decrease was necessary. Our third research question aimed to get an introductory sense of our competitors' brand positions in the region. And that's what we'll talk about on the next slide. So you can see on this price quality matrix, there's brand A, brand B, brand C. Those are obviously pseudonyms, and there's real brands behind those, but we don't want to dox any companies by naming them outright. If you are familiar with the industry, you might be able to guess who's who in the comparison. But this perceptual mapping exercise illuminated our assumptions about the competitive structure of the market, namely that brand A, which is a multinational company, competes by selling basic products for low prices. Brand B is another multinational that competes by selling basic products for slightly higher prices while focusing on broader distribution. And brand C is yet another multinational that competes very aggressively by selling okay products for a premium price, utilizing superior distribution and brand awareness to flood the market with their equipment. Brand D is a humble mid-market company whose product quality blows the other three brands out of the water while charging the highest price. Brand D has to fight extra hard because they don't control their own distribution channel. Where does Honeybee compete in this group? You can see when you look at the matrix that niches start to emerge in the information. Honeybee is really the challenger product to Brand D. Like Brand D, our market research indicates that we compete at the top end of the market, charging a premium price for a great product. But also like Brand D, we don't control our own distribution channel. With less brand recognition and history than Brand D, our job is to differentiate our offering from them and solve problems that they don't, eventually moving to the right and slightly upward on the matrix. What's inevitable, all information aside, what's inevitable is that at least while you're still a relatively unknown brand, one of the problems you're going to be forced to solve is upfront cost. Even among farmers who are primarily considered with return on investment, a new machine that's relatively unknown is a risk, and farmers like to mitigate risks. If you're a new machine and it's something that they're not used to, if it's a product their dealer doesn't know how to support like the back of their hand, then you better be prepared to mitigate those risks, at least until you've built up that brand in the region. What else did we learn? Well, with the information, we came back to Canada and we knew that we had to market a challenger product in the high price, high quality space. And we also learned that having a simpler product but less proven, we had to have a significant edge on price. We came into the research with the idea that a simpler, less expensive product would maybe put us among a different ilk of farmer and put us in a different space on that competitive matrix. But it appeared that even a simpler product would really only appeal to the bigger farmers. Honeybee's not structurally set up to compete on price, and it's just it's an avenue that we aren't meant to go down. None of our indicators tell us that we're supposed to flood the market with cheap equipment. So we really, it confirmed that we need to be competing in that same niche, but that we need to build some brand equity in that niche in the US. So the recommendations coming back, the focus groups did confirm the benefit of offering this streamlined version of the Airflex in the Midwest. Because we were perceived as a challenger brand and because we had the room in our profit margin, we decided on a price decrease. Then it was agreed that this new product had to be branded as an iteration of the Airflex. Because up until that point, we'd fought really hard for 10% brand recognition in the Midwest, we didn't want to sully that progress with another unfamiliar product. The work that goes into a new product spans across every department. What we're talking about is just the marketing stuff, which was a significant piece of the puzzle in this situation. Honeybee decided that we needed to create an Airflex family. So it was agreed upon to market this streamlined machine as an iteration of the Airflex with a reduced price. From a marketing and a strategic standpoint, this involved splitting our target market in the US along very obvious lines. What we would do is market this new streamlined Airflex in the corn and soybean states and continue to market the existing Airflex in the mixed grain farm states like Montana and Kansas. In some states, with a more ambiguous crop mix, we would market both, and we would just get a little more granular in terms of where we're advertising what. At that point, it became time to create a plan with our agency. So the similarity of the product lines and the somewhat clean demographic lines between mixed grain farm markets and corn and soybean markets allowed Honeybee to do two things. One, market the two machines in almost mutually exclusive territories without a lot of overlap. It was unlikely that one audience would be exposed to both creatives based on the clean split between these two markets. And two, what it allowed us to do, personally, I hate the word synergy, but we did feel that the mutual exclusivity of the two markets would allow us to create a synergy by keeping the old products and the new products creative very similar, instead of having a totally new product with new creative requirements and new assets, just about new everything that comes along with introducing a completely new foreign product. So once we launched the product and we had our pricing and our market research sorted out, and we knew that we could build it and it had been tested properly, we knew from a marketing standpoint that we couldn't rely on brand recognition to get people to stop and look at our creative in that region. So it had to really stand out. As part of our creative strategy, our agency pushed us to bring a photographer in from British Columbia who had experience with luxury vehicles. We decided to call the product the Airflex SDX. We knew it was critical to brand this machine as an iterative step change in the Airflex in order to promote a sense of progress and not capriciousness. The result that came out was cleaner lines and decaling on the machine itself. We didn't want to sell basic and cheap. We wanted to sell focused and streamlined for this machine. The sleek decal design was derived from the lines within the Airflex logo itself. Those lines were then curved to represent the flexibility on the cutter bar of the Airflex SDX itself. Honeybee is growing today, and we can't, in the marketing world, and you all know this, but we can't apportion Honeybee's success in that region solely to the marketing plan. But that being said, we can draw some correlations with a certain degree of confidence. So here are some of the trends that we've seen since the release of this product in the Midwest. The biggest one is the increase in market share that we've seen in the Midwest since 2018. It's been a consistent year-over-year increase, and we're seeing that go up in 2021 as well. Our awareness in those regions increased from around 10% to more than 50% in the last few years. And currently, we're seeing record level pre-orders for 2021. Our production line is filling up by the day. To top it off, we were even recognized with our agency, LMNO, for our achievements at Best of Cama in 2020 for Best Single Execution Ad. So there were a lot of indicators that this went really well. Personally, as a marketing guy, it was really exciting to be able to come in well before the product was released and sort of guide some of the other departments and guide the ownership of the company in how we should release this product and what that should look like, and kind of those more nuanced ideas that sometimes aren't as considered. Hopefully this presentation gave you some insights into how the sausage is made when it comes to new market exploration. It can be kind of a messy process, but it's really exciting, and it's really fun as a marketer to see how how sort of leaning into your job description can really impact the results for the company. So I just want to say thanks to Cama for inviting me to do this presentation. It was really fun to go back and look through all of this. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Spencer. Again, a very insightful presentation and a unique look behind the curtain into what that product development process looks like and the role that marketing can play within it. On behalf of Cama Saskatchewan, I'd like to thank both of today's presenters for their participation and commitment to making this a very informative and successful event. And again, if you have any questions about either presentation, feel free to send those directly to me. I'm happy to share them with our two presenters, and we'll pass their responses along to you directly. Also, thank you to Cinema 6 Productions for your help in putting together today's video presentation. We always appreciate your willingness to help us out. Cama Saskatchewan has a jam-packed, exciting lineup of virtual events planned throughout the back half of this winter and into the spring. Next up is a webinar with LMNO on March 25th, focusing on current trends and best practices in digital marketing. Please go ahead and visit our website for the full list of events, to register for those events, and for more information on how to become a Cama Saskatchewan member. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoons.